Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve? It's quite a rather somber past couple of weeks, I guess, of news. And not sure how else to really describe it other than to sort of dive in and sort of cover it. It's interesting that, we've had a lot of coronavirus episodes in the last, couple of months because that's been the topic on everyone's minds, but the Americans have effectively figured out a way to sideline that as a story with the whole George Floyd thing, and now looking at it, like just seeing like the stream of video and images from America, it's like a crazy dystopian science fiction movie that we would have watched on TV in the past, but it's actually playing out.
We've gone from one global crisis to another. And, if things come in threes, there'll be another one on top of this, I'm sure.
It's certainly turning out to be a rather interesting year this year so far.
Well, it's a year I think everyone will write off at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess maybe if we can start with obviously there's a lot to talk about in relation to Trump's response, and there's been a whole lot of stories we could probably pick on, but obviously the one that's, I guess, taking the cake so far is his photo op in front of the church with, sort of awkwardly holding a Bible as if he knew what it was, and the events leading up to it, where he got his armed escorts in effect to clear protesters out of the way with tear gas, etc., just so that he could be seen strutting his stuff from the White House to that church, so he could have that photo op. And from all accounts, it just was because he got irritated at the idea that he was reported as going to the bunker the day before, and he didn't want to be seen like he was like Biden, telegraphing, basically broadcasting from the basement. And the one thing that's interesting about all of this is that this is what I think we were talking about before we got on, is that he's got a playbook, and it seemed to have been working for him for pretty much his entire life, but it's all going to crap now because the condemnation's been pretty universal.
Yeah, well, his performance has been, I think to everyone except his most bolted on, rusted on supporters, it's maybe could be described as abysmal. I don't know if there are words worse than that. He 3.5 years, he looked like he could have pulled off something amazing and proved all his doubters wrong, but I think the last 3 months he's shown that he probably would need to go to political school at least for a few months to learn something about communicating with the people that he represents. And I think that's probably about all we can say on that matter. His media antics are now working against him. His diatribe and rhetoric is working against him, and he really looks out of place and completely lost as well.
It's the playbook that he works off, I guess, only really works if there isn't like something really serious that he has to deal with. And ultimately, I don't know if this was foreshadowed in the past through commentary or even if we'd mentioned it before, but it really takes like a real crisis to bring or to shed light on that sort of thing. And I think that's what all of this has done. And it wasn't just the virus, it was the way the protests are handled, yet like suggesting that, enacting the Insurrection Act so they could send the army out onto the streets against their own citizens. Like that all is kind of horrifying stuff. But again, it's like he was trying to use he may have not even been serious about it. It was just another playbook tactic to shock. And it just freaked everyone out.
But in these circumstances, as you pointed out, these tactics just don't work. They're completely ineffectual. Nothing he said has done anything to quell the situation. Nothing he said has done anything to sort of calm the situation. And That's as you say, that's what a real leader could have done. Could be terrible at policy, but would be able to calm people in a time of crisis.
Mm. And I guess moving on from Trump specifically, just to the whole overall situation with the death of George Floyd and the repercussions underneath it, what is, I think, remarkable about the way all of that's played out is that I guess that was one incident, but it's like it, sort of like lighting a match in a gas-filled room. It set off all of the angst and all of the anger and all of, I guess. I think obviously there's the treatment of African Americans in America at the hands of the police. There's the I guess the police culture in the sense that kind of leads to it, and that sort of like shoot first or be shot kind of mentality that they've got. But then I think it seems to have also just broadened out like all of the frustrations, I guess, that are in American society around all the various inequities that have been occurring for such a long time. And you throw in the fact that there's a pandemic on top of that. And it was like, it was just it could have been this, it could have been something else that was just enough to like sort of set the whole society off. And now we're getting protests in every state. And then also the crazy stuff. So you've got peaceful protesters, but then you've got the thugs going out at night looting and causing all sorts of mayhem, and it just makes you wonder, are they at a tipping point? Are they going to is this just going to fade away again, or is it going to change? Or it seems to me like we're going through a period, at least with the states, that something significant could occur over the course of the year, depending on how all of this plays out.
Yeah, I mean, it's an election year over there as well. I'm sure some of this plays into that. There's, obviously been a large proportion of the population very unhappy with Trump for the last, 4 years. So I think some of that plays into this as well, both on the peaceful and on the not so peaceful front. But, there's a lot of things happening now in this world. I think there's a role of social media in this, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that that's not good, but that's something that will certainly come under scrutiny going forward. So I think the implications that spin out of this will be multiple and really like impactful in the longer term. It'll be interesting to see what an incoming president will do to try and fix a situation that's very difficult.
It's interesting. There's just quickly on the social media angle, only in the sense that like it's almost like every or almost all incidents of where things are going bad are now being recorded in full HD 4K broadcast all over the world, posted everywhere, and you can't run away from it. There's just way too many examples that you can look up and see of what's going on, which is an interesting contrast to what, say, mainstream news would be putting out there, which are, I don't know, it seems to me they're sort of focusing on the more gratuitous sort of footage, only potentially because, I guess it is more, it'll grab more eyeballs, whereas social media postings tend to have the feeling of an immediacy of just what exactly is happening.
Well, that's right. And what's really, I guess, powerful about this is that the whole incident was recorded in the case of George Floyd, and that the video speaks for itself. And even the 75-year-old man that was pushed over, I mean, the world sees that, and it puts a leadership in a very difficult situation politically because they have to change. And they've got two ways. They can try and suppress, which obviously won't make the public happy, or, the culture has to change, which would be the positive outcome. And but both of those paths are difficult anyway, and neither has a guarantee of success. But we can only hope with all of the things that we've seen over the last fortnight that, there's enough people out there who want to make a change for the better and use this situation to do that personally and try and achieve it globally.
Absolutely. And I guess just to slowly wrap up as well, we'll bring the pandemic back in, because you can't seem to forget that that's actually going on at the same time as well. Throw another thing on there, and just the fact that maybe this is just more specific in the States, and the fact that they've had obviously the largest number of cases. There's probably the biggest risk of the virus spreading more in the States, only because of how much it's out there, and the fact that if everyone's out there protesting in large groups, not to say that it's an excuse to sort of shut it down, but the converse thing is that there is an implied risk of some of these sort of protests being super spread incidents, because simply from the fact that obviously nobody can social distance in those things.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not convinced. I think the evidence we have at the moment shows that it requires close living with, touching contaminated surfaces. I don't know that there's enough evidence, particularly probably in the warmer months in the States, that crowds can really spread COVID. But we'll see. We'll see. I guess in 4 weeks' time, we'll see. But I think, the protests won't result in an upswing of COVID, but if they do, and then we'll know a bit more about how COVID spreads.
Yeah, and do you think just finally that just being in isolation and being forced into lockdowns for all this time, that could have contributed to some of the angst that's sort of boiling over as well?
Look, I think it's just been such an unusual 6 months that I wouldn't think for a second that wouldn't have played some role. But how would we know? If it had been a normal year, would we have been as sensitive to it? I guess we can never tell.
Absolutely. All right, we might wrap it up there, and I guess we'll keep having a look at what's going on. We've been covering Trump and the coronavirus on separate and sort of similar tangents in various episodes, so I'm sure it'll come up again. And I just think we're heading into a 6-month period that could be quite interesting to see how it all plays out.
No question at all about that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, our RSS feeds, watch us on any and all of your devices, and we greatly appreciate your visit to our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.